Hi, and welcome everyone to Strong Core Podcast. I am glad that you signed up again and to listen to the podcast this week. This week I have Coach Carly, and as always, I will tag her in the show notes so you get to follow her and see all of her adventures and philosophy and her coaching business. So, welcome, Carly.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, excited to chat with you.
Yes, and I love that I follow people on Instagram and I kind of get to know them a little bit and then they come live on the screen and there's no difference. Like you can tell that they're not selling you something fake. This is the same person, no
Yep.
filters. And I just love that fact that there's consistency between what I see on Instagram and what comes up on the screen.
Yep, that's perfect.
Um, and also, I'm excited to get to know you in person. So let's start like where we always start. Tell me and the listeners a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you reside? What is the family status? What is your coaching business about? And then we'll take it
Yeah.
from there.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Carly, and my husband and I, we live in Michigan. So we live in northern Michigan, and we have two little kids. So we have a 1 and 2-year-old. So life is crazy, to say the absolute least. And then we're both coaches. So we both coach full time. It's our full time gig.
Wow.
And we have been doing it for 12 years now, which is absolutely insane. I was just thinking about that the other day, and I was like, we've been coaching for 12 years. And, a lot has changed from when we started to now, to say the least, and also just, like, how we coach and different things as well. Yeah, and through that, obviously, have had kids, and life has changed, and it just becomes more beautiful along the way as well. So yeah, that's,
Do
like, the
you,
super
do you
quick run.
coach together in the same private practice, I
Yes.
guess, as you, or you belong to different practices?
Nope, so we own our own business, so we own organic coaching, and then, yeah, so we coach together, and then we have our own athletes, essentially. So
Gotcha. And are you consulting with each other about athletes?
So I think that's the beautiful thing of working close in that
Yeah.
aspect of it's not just us. So like if there is something that stumps us or you're like, I have this idea, or are you thinking about this the same way I'm thinking about this? It's really nice to have someone else to bounce ideas off of, to say the least, and just to get like a second set of eyes. It's funny, I remember after COVID and my first athlete racing an Ironman again, I was like, it's been like 2 years, and I'm like, am I building this right? Like, it feels so foreign now. I haven't built an athlete up for a full Ironman in a
Yeah.
year and a half, 2 years. So yeah, so and
I was one of those athletes. I wanted for my big 50 birthday to do an Ironman, and then Ironman Maryland got canceled because of COVID, so we had to continue another year. So curious to know. I usually don't ask about the partner, but since he's in the business of triathlon, did you meet in a race? Did you? How did you meet?
no, nope. So we met, I was actually still in high school, right out of high school, and we actually used to race dirt bikes.
Oh,
So we met racing dirt bikes, and I got really injured the year we got married. And then we actually both also have degrees in exercise science. So he has his bachelor's in exercise science. I have my master's. And as we were starting school, so right, like those first couple years, you're just getting your basics, weren't totally sure what we wanted to do yet. But we started doing 5Ks essentially. And so we did motorcycle racing into like 5Ks, and then we learned about triathlon and we learned about Ironman. And so then we've been on the journey together since the beginning. So we did our first Ironman together, and all of that. So it's been really fun.
how did you hear about triathlon and Ironman?
Um, it's one of those things. I'm gonna say it's really, I'll say cliche.
Mhm.
Really is just like Iron Man from like watching the Ironman World
Yeah.
Championships on
Yeah.
TV. Yeah, so you're like, and then actually my husband worked in a bike shop, and I went in to take him dinner one day, and there was a beautiful tri bike, and it was like the high-end women's tri bike at the time, and we
Yeah.
were doing like sprints, maybe we've done an Olympic, and I was like, I need that in my life. So he surprised me, he got it for me, and then I got it, and I was like, I have to do an Ironman because I have now this super expensive tri bike. And literally it was the pressure of like, I have this bike, I have to do it justice.
Yes.
So then that was our journey into I think then the following year, I did my first no, I don't think I'd even done Olympic length because I did my first Olympic length, my first 70.3, and my first Ironman all in the same year. So
So how many years are you a triathlete?
so about 15, 16, about? Yeah,
So you
something along
started
that.
when you were 4. It sounds
Yeah.
like it, something like that.
I was in my early 20s for sure. So,
Okay, so it's clear. So it's almost always that the audience that I'm interviewing, the participants, is either were athletes before and then came back to it, or
yep.
non-athlete and then needed something for themselves, usually because motherhood took so much out of them, and they found some. And I'm always interested to find out how they found out triathlon and Ironman, and they became athlete after. For you, it sounds like you were athlete before,
Yep, yep,
and
and I
then came motherhood.
yeah.
Was there any, as someone so active and having a business of coaching athletes, was there any questions or doubts about should we become parents? Would it interfere with the business and with racing, or you
Yeah,
knew that this would come?
that's a really good question. So, my husband and I were also married a very long time before we had kids. Like, we got married as children. I was 19 when we got married, so we waited 12 years to have kids, and I think
Wow.
the funniest story is the year that there was Ironman Alaska. Yeah, we'd been married 10, 11 years at that point, and I literally looked at him one day and was like, "I'm either signing up for Ironman Alaska or I think we should have a baby." And so he was, like, slightly blindsided by that and was like, "Okay." So, so that was kind of, like, where that journey started of, like, okay, it's, like it just felt time to have kids.
Yeah.
But then it's really interesting, like, working with moms over the years and then going through that journey myself. 2 different things. One being like, "Wow, these women are absolutely amazing. The amount of training I was giving them or gave them, well being a mom, well training for this races, it was a whole other level of, what is the word I'm looking for? I
Good
was really
level of
proud of it.
understanding and insights into what really it takes.
Yeah, yeah, like, mind blown. And then when I actually became a mom myself, like, the journey returning back to sport was much harder than I thought it was going to be. Much harder, and, like, being a like a I'll say a high level athlete, like, I've qualified for Kona twice, lots of podiums, all of those things, so, like, being pretty in tune with my body, and then I'm like, "What is happening?" Like,
Yes.
"You're cleared at 6 weeks," and I was like, "Alright, I'm ready to get back to it," and I'm like, "That is not happening." So, like, those are the 2 things.
So what changed? Are you giving different workouts to moms? Are you building differently once they return from um, maternity leave? What shift in the philosophy?
Yeah, so it definitely shifted my philosophy on moms and how they train. And before, I think I was definitely giving a lot of women way too much way too much essentially stress on their body. We already have stress. I tell athletes all the time, like your body doesn't know the difference between stress from work,
Yes.
kids, all of these outside factors and stress from exercise, whether you just did a hard run, a hard bike, whatever. The body doesn't know the difference.
Yes.
And so and now I take all of that outside stress much more into account when building workouts for moms and that just that season of life essentially. I fully understand that now to say the least. Um,
I said it in another interview on the podcast, that I came to realize that stress is stress. The body doesn't differentiate if it's physical or cognitive. And you and I chatted a little bit before about which Ironmans I did, and I told you about my story about Lake Placid. I think one of the things I learned, and I didn't know that, is even the journey of becoming a PhD. It was so stressful. There was so much work and cognitive load that I did not know how much it took away. I just thought I'm training physically. That's why I'm tired.
Yeah.
And, when
It,
it's year over year, it accumulates and it takes, and when you have a baby after a baby, it takes a
yep.
lot. So
Yep.
I
Yep.
agree with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And the body can only handle so much stress on it. And so, yeah, now that I fully grasp that, definitely I'm just much more cautious. And like when an athlete, if it's a one-off and they're like, I'm really tired today, I didn't sleep well last night. Perfect. But when you start to see those and you're like, okay, we're starting to stack these a little bit more, then it's like, okay, tell me more of what's going on. Let's back off. Let's adjust. Let's actually recover before we build again. So,
Yeah, and in my last episode, speaking actually from an athlete, also from Michigan, she was saying when she was not taking enough time for recovery and eating, she was always injured. And so that's another sign, I guess, for the listeners. If you're always injured, I'm not saying that's the only, root cause that you're not recovering and eating. Something else might be going on. We're not doctors, obviously, but pay attention. The body gives you the sign, and sometimes.
yeah, but sometimes it's hindsight where you're like, oh, I see that now. We have to zoom out, and then you're like, okay, I'm seeing the big picture. So yeah,
So
and
if
then you're
I'm an
also
athlete, if I'm one of your athletes and trained before I had kids and I'm used to a certain load and working hard and number of hours and I'm coming back maybe even a year or two after having babies and I'm start gently questioning you as a coach, why are you not giving me as much mileage or as intense workouts? Do you see that maybe coming from moms? And if you do, how do you help them understand that intensity is not necessarily what they need?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. And it's one of those things where you have to, it's really hard not to compare yourself to, I'll say, like, your past self, and you're in a
Yeah.
completely different stage of life now. And so actually one athlete that we have, it is kind of like reframing it a little bit into like, this is like a whole new like postpartum PR essentially of like, okay, we're not going to worry about like past PRs, but kind of that first season back, especially if it's within that like first year, maybe two, of being like, okay, we're just like reestablishing like kind of our baseline essentially. And like, yes, I have no doubt women and moms are so strong and you will most likely be right back to the PRs that you were, but like let's just focus on some postpartum PRs and just consistency. Like if we're not able to hit consistency, then we can't stack in volume and intensity unless we're being consistent and hitting those baseline essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, once we're doing that, yeah, we can add in I call it the fun stuff. We can add in the intensity. We can add in those hard days,
Yeah.
but we have to be consistent and get that down first before we can stack onto it.
Absolutely. And for the listeners, if you have a moment to check Carly's Instagram page, which again, I'll put in the show notes, one of the posts that I love, I think it's the first one actually that is pinned, is you explain your philosophy about training and some of what you just covered is there, plus a couple of other things about having plan B and paying
Yeah.
attention to recovery. But I really love that you help them reset and mentally not go back to 2 years ago and just know that they're in a different state and that they can that actually will lead us to the next question. Another post that I love is that you're saying I actually see in moms, including myself, you are writing this, not me saying it, that you see mothers actually achieving their peak performance as mothers. So tell us a little bit about what you noticed about yourself post babies and what you're seeing. I mean, maybe we'll start with you and then we'll talk maybe on athletes, what you're seeing them and what gets them to the peak performance as mothers.
Yeah. Um, like, I'm just gonna say, like, you go through childbirth. Like, you grow a child, you birth a child, however that, right, doesn't matter, C-section, whatever. You go through all of that, and I think, for a lot of women, like, you just realize you're capable of so much more, and, like, that
Mm,
was for me where I'm like, "Okay." this is like a whole other level. And then also like your time becomes very sacred. So it's like, how can I train super smart with the time I have available? And it's more so of like, here's the plan. We get in, we get out, we get the work done, and we can go on with our day. And like between those two things of like this whole new level of like, I can do really hard things and I know I can, and just being like in, out, get the work done, don't question, like you don't have time to let your brain question what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think honestly between like those two factors, like for me personally is like, okay, it just kind of sets to that next level of being an athlete essentially.
So you're saying moms are achieving their peak performance as mother athletes because of realizing what their body can do, and because the time is so limited that there's no negotiation with themselves. They just do it and continue with, and that's why they're achieving the consistency, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think like honestly, those are like the two biggest things that I have seen in myself and yeah, with athletes. So
And I saw that you are an early morning
I,
trainer. You are.
the alarm is set for 5 a.m. almost every day, and so my kids are. I will say I'm thankful they are great sleepers. They sleep till 7, so I'm like I have 2 hours, and I'm a person that like I can get up and be exercising within like 10-15 minutes. I don't need a lot of time. So like that alarm goes off and I'm starting my workout really quick. It gives me a little time. Basically, I'm like, yeah, I have 2 hours in the morning to do whatever I need to do. Sometimes it's can be pretty much all dedicated to training, right? Sometimes life, I'm like, wow, I need to clean up the kitchen and do laundry also during this time.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm like, those 2 hours in the morning are so sacred. And like as training gets longer, I'm such an early morning person. Like if it's a 4 a.m. alarm, sometimes I will take it. That is my time. And I
So
would
how do you protect the sleep? Because when do you go to sleep?
sometimes I like if I know my alarm has to be first off I'll say like 9 a.m. or 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Like very rarely am I going to bed past 9 p.m.
Okay.
I'd
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
get up early and have to do stuff than do stuff late at night. So yeah, I'm just an early riser, so going to bed at a decent time, hands down. Like I don't know the last time I was up past 10. We'll put it that way. So yeah, and like if it's like, hey, I know I'm getting up for an early or a long ride, or a long run, so it's like more of a 4 a.m., then I'm like, okay, I'm starting to wind down when my kids go to bed. And I'm winding down shortly after them as well. So
So
that's what
how
we
does
do.
it work in the build phase where you have to go out for 6 hours, or maybe go to the basement? So how do you split it with your husband? You can't train together because someone has to watch the kids, I assume.
Yep, so that's a good question. So for my husband and I, we typically will like each one of us will have basically like a season. Like this season is about you. Like you
Mhm.
are the priority this season. So I've been pregnant or having babies or little kids the last 2-3 years. So they have been more seasons about my husband. So this year I was like, this season is about me. And he was like, yes, this season is about you. So that's one way where the other person will still train and do races and that sort of thing. But the priority is like, hey,
Yeah.
one or the other. Cause yeah, otherwise it's a lot.
Yeah.
And we don't live like close by to grandparents or anything like that, where you can be like, hey, can you watch the kids a little bit here and there?
Yeah.
So for us, one of us kind of gets a season more or less. And so, yeah, when the rides get even longer, you can only wake up so early.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I still get up early, still get on my bike. Most of it is going to be trainer rides for the long stuff, or at least starting on the trainer, maybe taking it outside a little bit. But then my husband will get the kids up, get them breakfast, get them ready to go for the day. And then when I'm done, then we'll do whatever it is as a family for the day.
It sounds like from very early age as an athlete, you're very consistent and you're hitting your workouts. You talk about this even before, but even more so as a mother after. What happens on days where you just can't? One of the kids is sick. I'm really interested to understand the what goes on in the head. So
Yeah.
what goes on in your head in days that are difficult? That is it guilt? Are you feeling like I'm a coach. I should be the model, and to my to the people that I coach, and here I am missing a few workouts. Or what goes in your head? Maybe
Yeah,
there's
no,
not.
that's a great question. So, when life be lifing, because it happens, I have a personal rule where I try not to skip 2 days in a row.
Okay.
So if there's like all the lemons are being thrown your way and your kids are sick, X, Y, and Z, you're just like, wow, that is like not happening today. Um, Try not to skip 2 days in a row. So,
Okay.
if on that third day, it's like, hey, I just need to do 10 minutes. It's just going to be 10 minutes. I'm going to literally hop on my trainer for 10 minutes before the kids get up, during their nap, whatever it is. Like that is something. And I think it's something that a lot of people will be like, well, it's only 10 minutes. What's the point? But that builds consistency in your schedule. So no more than 2 days, obviously, unless you're like sick or
Yeah.
injured, one of those. Like this is just about when life be lifing. So those little bits of and pockets of time, or it's like, hey, I had a 60-minute run on my schedule and um we're still in northern Michigan. It's still super snowy. It's still super icy. We just got 30 inches of snow last week. And so it's like, hey, I like it's just not feasible. So then it's like, okay, I'm gonna do 30 minutes because I can handle 30 minutes in this like time frame in this day. So shortening is like always plan B of like what are we shortening? How can we still get in like the meat and potatoes, the bulk of the work? And maybe let's say you have three like 3 by whatever set or like intervals, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do one of those instead of all 3 and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So like for me, it's all about consistency and like shortening things way up. Like I'm not afraid of 10, 15, 20 minutes, even if it was supposed to be 60 minutes, 75 minutes, 90 minutes. That is like
That
really,
mindset of Plan B, which I also saw in kind of your guiding principle post,
yeah,
is one of the things that shocked me most in my study, as part of my doctorate degree on Iron Moms. It's so simple that you will say, what, for that you do a PhD? No, not for that, but that's one of the things that came up. I was studying mothers who self-scored high on guilt and trying to understand if those mothers who feel guilty about training are still able to persist. It's not just, did one 5 years ago and continue to do Ironman.
yeah.
What is going on in their head? And that simple, they didn't call it Plan B. I might start using this, but this mindset of something is better than nothing, even 10 minutes, it blew my mind because, and maybe you can tell us if you have athletes like this that you need to explain it to them. Because for me, it was like, if I don't get the satisfaction of the green dot on the app, I don't want to see,
What-
I don't want to see the orange.
What's the point?
I don't want to see the orange. I don't want to overdo it, right? And I don't want to underdo it. So I'd rather not do it at all. And I'll say I'll do it tomorrow. Well, life is lifing and tomorrow doesn't happen. And now I'm upset with myself. I feel guilty because I missed 2 workouts, right? And so I, I'm going to tell the listeners and you something that I'm experimenting with myself right now about something is better than nothing. But this mindset is so simple and such a shift for, I think, for moms that when it, if you're like me, that you only do it if it's green, you're doing it wrong. And I changed, by the way. But do you have athletes who you'll tell them that and they'll push back and say, no, 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 I'll put the hour run or it's not worth running 10
Yeah,
minutes?
yeah, absolutely. In endurance sports, Ironman 70.3, triathlon in general tends to pull very type A personalities. Not everyone, obviously, but that's just like it just tends to naturally pull that type of person. And so it's really, really hard, me included. I like to see green. And if it is not green, it's really hard sometimes. So like for some athletes, I'll be like, hey, it's like I will go in and like change on the back end of things to be like, make sure it's green. You still got in like a decent amount of work today. We're going to update that so it's still green. You still feel like you accomplished that. And then we can move on. And what you said is like very common where we miss a day, work ran late, kids are sick, whatever it is. And then we're like, okay, I'm just going to do that tomorrow. I'll do that run and that swim tomorrow. And that's when we start to get into trouble. Yes, once in a while we can double up and that sort of thing. But then when we're constantly shifting and doubling up is when I say we dig a really deep fatigue hole and we can't crawl out of it. And that's when trouble starts to happen. So
Okay.
that's where I'm like, I'd rather you shorten and do what you have time for, and then we just pick up tomorrow where we left off. Is what I try to do myself and what I recommend to my athletes as well.
And for the listeners, I'm sure there's amazing experienced moms that it will be obvious for them, but those maybe who are starting with triathlon or maybe thinking about getting into the longer distance, one of the things that I learned is that you can actually, a way to deal with this is actually to cut the fluff, if you will, of the warm up and the cool down, and just kind of definitely still warm up and cool down, but focus on the main set, right? And maybe you don't need 15 minutes or 20 minutes to cool down. Maybe you can do 5.
Uh,
I,
yes,
many of the listeners know that I talk about grit and what is grit and what's difference between mental toughness and grit and resilience. They're not the same. I want to double click on grit for a second. Grit, according to Angela Duckworth, is passion and perseverance for long-term goal. I think we talked quite a bit about the consistency. I'll call it the perseverance. It's almost like an autopilot. You wake up, or you at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, it doesn't matter, but you just do. I want to talk a little bit about the passion before I talk about your athletes. What about you? What is your passion about doing Ironmans? And I'm gonna add on to that. I keep asking in each of the interviews because I'm really curious about this. Some people might say, "You've done a bunch. You've competed for like 15 years. Why keep doing it? What are you getting out of it?"
that's another great question. And I'm like, where to go with that question? And it's almost one of those things that goes back to just perseverance of like, it's just, I very much enjoy the training aspect of things. And like the race is just the cherry on the cake. And
Yeah.
I truly love, like, the process of training, like, that
Yes.
is my favorite thing, and so that's what keeps me coming back, and then the fact of, like, you learn so much every time you race, every season that you're building, you're like, "Okay," and sometimes you're re I tell athletes all the time, sometimes you're relearning things that you already learned a few years ago,
Yes.
but you're relearning them. And so that alone of just, I love the process. I love the journey of, like, continuing to try to better yourself, and it doesn't necessarily have to be time. Like, that's one thing I think a lot of us, we're always thinking about this time, I wanna be this fast, or I wanna place in, the podium or whatever that is. And it doesn't have to be those things. It can be
Yeah.
something completely different of, like, I'm crossing my goal is gonna be to cross the finish line with a smile on my face and enjoy the race day. So those are kind of the things that keep me coming back, and then I'll say, like, a fun thing too is I do love to travel, my husband and I love to travel, and so, like, very rarely do we repeat races, and so it's fun, we kinda look at the calendar and we're like, "Ooh, I wanna go here." So, like, it's a great excuse to go travel, and pre-kids, like, we traveled all over the world for races, and so that was another reason of, like, just a little bit fun of, like, "Hey, we got
Absolutely.
to go all over the world and get to experience races in those areas." So that's just kinda like a fun, again, cherry on top.
I have a joy in the process, which is a paradox. I talked about it in other interviews with other participants. For someone from the outside, it's a paradox. How can joy in the could coexist with the suffering of the
That's very
training, of the early mornings, of that paradox is very hard for people to understand. I guess not for Ironmans themselves, but for the people from the outside. But the joy is consistently coming up, and
yeah.
the other thing is that I heard that you said, and that's why I called this podcast Strong Core. I was literally have list. I documented it because I said, well, maybe one day someone will ask me what other names you consider, but I got to Strong Core. That wasn't taken to my surprise because I had many other names, which is this is about, exactly about that taking off, if you will, all your layers, and it's kind of knowing to the core who you are, and that's why I called it Strong Core. I
Yeah, I love that.
felt I was mom before I was an Ironman, and I learned how much more I can do after having 4 boys.
Oh
as
my
an Ironman.
goodness.
And I remember there were moments where I was like, I'm not doing this PhD anymore. I can't do this. It's very hard. And I'm giving up. And immediately the second thought was like, girl, you did an Ironman. Sit your ass.
You can do this.
Make a copy and finish this paper. And sure I
Yeah.
did. Like, and that's why I call this podcast core a strong core, because I feel like through this journey and the joy and also the suffering, we learn what we're made of, what's our core identity.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
now your athletes, I'm curious to know, you probably ask them, what's your why? Why are you doing this? What are some of the things that you're hearing why moms are interested in doing Ironman?
I think for a lot of the athletes that I work with and like especially moms, it's the like most common one would be like to be healthy for my kids, to show my kids commitment, and like going through a process and like I can't quit because they know I'm training for this. Like so that's like most common of
Yeah.
like, just overall like health, wellness, well-being. And we have to fill into our cups, and so just having that, like, consistent this for training, it's a lot of, the only time that we get to this, like, my little bubble of me time, so
Yeah.
that fills our cup, so then you can fill everyone else's cups and
Yeah.
everything else that needs to happen, and so I think that's, like, a common thread, and then, like, I know even for myself now, my oldest is almost 3, and especially, like, in the summer, I cannot put on running shoes. Feel like she knows what my running clothes look like. So excited, like, she's been running in the stroller with me. So in the summer, typically, I'll do my runs, with the stroller with them, and she, like, knows, and she gets so, so excited, and she's, like, ready to go for a run. And so, like, those are, like, the things where you're like, "Okay, I'm, like, setting those examples also of just, like, general health, well-being, taking care of yourself, being active, and still enjoying it and making it fun." And, so, yeah, those are kind of that would be part of my why as well, but, yeah, it's typically just very much around
That's what you're
getting
hearing
those
from
good
your athletes.
examples.
And it aligns with what I found. I asked 350 women to answer why. Why are you doing this? And it doesn't mean what the percentage I'm going to give now, it's excluding. You can have two reasons. You can do it for personal challenge and for health, right? So you have to double count, if you will, the reasons. But the number one reason I found was that about 66% was personal challenge. So I guess it's already drawing the Ironman training, drawing women who wants a personal challenge. But underneath it was about 46% were role modeling for the kids. That consistently came up. And then below it was me time. I wanted time for myself. I wanted to differentiate from being the wife of or the mother of to just being an Ironman, like this
This is me.
identity. And so identity, but also me time, separate, like quiet time, clean my head, come back to fill the cup. And then longevity, health. Now, I'm curious to, and I'm not comparing who has it harder, dads or moms, those who don't have kids or not, but do you find different reasons for why dads or athletes without kids, what's their why? Obviously, there's not the reason of being a role model. So what is the why of athletes who don't have kids? Why are
Yeah.
they doing Ironman?
Yeah, I think that it basically what you said is like that personal challenge,
Mm,
is like probably well, it you said, right? It's like the number one. So I think,
I see.
yeah, that personal challenge, going for something hard, like it's a big commitment and it's a,
Yeah,
um typically, athletes will train for, right, about a year, especially if it's your first Ironman, around a year to get ready for that, and it's all involving for that year, and so it's a great personal challenge. So, yeah, I would say like that and just, like, trying something new, and I typically say there's, like, 2 types of athletes, and there's your bucket listers, and it's also, like it's a huge thing to check off the bucket list, so we have bucket list athletes and, like, lifestyle athletes.
yes,
And we have a lot of our bucket list athletes that transition to lifestyle athletes. So that personal challenge, and then going into like, okay, the health, the longevity, I just enjoy this
enjoy.
part of my life. So
Absolutely. Which of the three disciplines you feel you're happier?
Man, so I grew up swimming, so I was a swimmer, so
Okay.
I know we were chatting a little bit beforehand, you're like, "Swim is my best." I'm like, "Me too." Grew up a swimmer. But it's interesting, I love being on my bike, and I do mostly now all trainer riding, but I love it. You can just kinda zone out, you can do the work, totally okay with that.
Mhm.
Well, it goes through seasons and ups and downs, but I
Yeah.
also enjoy running when we can finally, like, comfortably run outside, and it's great, and you get to, all the beautiful things about running outside. So it kinda depends a little bit. I enjoy all 3 for different reasons, but, probably I would say, like, if I could only pick one, it would be the bike. Um, so,
Do
yeah.
you listen to music or watch TV when you run or bike?
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Mm.
Usually, I also call that my me time of, like, what do I wanna learn about? And so lots of podcasts. And then, of course, sometimes you just need a good lighthearted show or movie or whatever. But, yeah, a lot of podcasts would be most common right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Portray to the listeners that everything is under control, consistent, executed well. I want to hear a little bit about the times that things don't go well, when you need to negotiate with yourself. So, the question I have for you is, can you take me to a time where things was hard? You just didn't want to do it. You didn't want to do the training. You didn't feel like it, and you had to negotiate a little bit with yourself. And what did you say to yourself to finally?
Yeah, no, happens to everyone, everyone, to say the least. So, I mean, we'll just go as simple as last week I was solo with the kids for almost 2 weeks, and that's for any parent, you're like, "Wow, that's a lot," without, like, bedtimes and wake ups and all of
Yeah.
that. And so it was I told you I don't last time I went to bed at, like, 10 o'clock. Well, it was actually last week now that I think about it, because everything else had to happen. So, it was later nights, still early mornings, and there were many mornings last week, that I'm like, "Okay, that alarm goes off," and you're like, "Literally the last thing I wanna do is wake up right now." Like, I am so tired. So,
Yeah.
so tired. And so there are times where, like, you need to sleep, and so, I did sleep in, my alarm went off, and I was like, "It is literally not
You
happening today."
didn't. You slept?
I slept, and so I'm like, "Okay, we are sleeping in today. We are literally waking up when the kids wake up today." And then that's where I'm like, I I just suggested, right? So I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna take today as my rest day. We're just going to shift things around." It was early in the week. So we're essentially just gonna shift everything a little bit, totally fine. And those are the things where it's like we all lay in bed and we're like, "Okay." We do that, like, mental math of, like, if I do this here and that there and all of this stuff, so yeah, li that was like, we're adjusting, we're sleeping in, sleep is equally as important as
Yeah,
training some days, and there was an extra rest day last week because that what we had talked about,
because there
right?
was a lot going on for 2 weeks, yeah.
The outside stress and everything adds up, and it was just a hectic week. And that's totally okay. Like, life happens, and something is better than nothing, just like we talked about. And some things got shortened last week, moved rest days, and we're still here to talk about it, and
I
everything's fine.
Yeah, and I also think that we talked about role modeling and how important it is for many parents, who are engaging with endurance sport to role model. Maybe not when the kids are almost 3 and 1, but as they grow up and you can verbalize, "Today I slept in, I felt like I needed that." The kids are watching, they're learning. That's also role modeling, learning to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself is not just massage and manicure, it's sometimes sleeping in and saying, "Today I needed to listen to my body." The kids also learn that.
Yeah, and
So I love this
yeah,
example.
yeah, and as a coach, I call that athletic maturity.
Mm,
And it's something that's really hard, right? For a lot of us
yeah,
to know when to push, when to pull back, that all or nothing mindset that we've talked about. And it's athletic maturity to grow into that and really know, like, okay, I really need to rest today, and it's totally okay. Like,
yeah,
we're gonna be all right.
yeah.
And so the more reps you have at that, and the more you practice that essentially, I feel like the better you get at it. So yeah.
So just to continue and finish maybe the thread of role modeling, because it's so important for so many parents. What are you hoping that your kids are taking away from watching you? I know they're young right now, but what are you hoping that they're taking away?
That's really interesting. I hope that they enjoy fitness and whatever that looks like to them. And like obviously most kids enjoy sports, but as they see my husband and I just training and enjoying it and that they see that what am I trying to say? That they see that you can enjoy
It's
fitness.
fun. It's not a chore.
Yes, yes, basically, yes. And take that along with them, past, school sports and all of that stuff as well. Just for longevity and overall health and
Yeah.
well-being and that I would say like that is one of the number one things that I hope that they kind of see and can look back on and be like, "My parents were crazy, but they did teach me, these things." So yeah.
For moms who are considering entering the sport of triathlon, or maybe already doing sprint and Olympic and would like to go into the more longer distances, but maybe are scared, they don't think they have the time, what would be an advice you would give them?
I would say you can do it, and if there's a will, there's a way. I truly believe that. If there's a will, there's a way, and your training might not look cookie cutter or quote unquote like a normal training week, block, year, whatever we're talking about. And it might be different where maybe a long run and a long bike in the same week just isn't feasible. There's ways around that, and it might look training might look different, but if there's a will, there's a way, and I truly believe that.
Mm. There's something before we started recording that you and I chatted, and I just remembered the difference between doing a half and a full. You said, you know what? Sometimes doing the half and committing that this is what I'm going to do this season is the visible, uh, sensible approach. Do you see athletes who have done Ironman um, being attracted more to continue and do the Ironman and not kind of feeling that half is good enough, or people
I
are
think it
able to
goes
smoothly transition between the distances?
Yeah, I think it goes kind of both ways. Some people, right, like you, it's like only the Ironman, like it is the holy grail of the distances. And I've worked with many athletes, a few moms in particular that come to mind that they literally only do full Ironmans. One sometimes twice a year, 2 Ironmans a year is a lot on the body, so, like, 1 Ironman a year, and, like, that's pretty much it. And then the 70.3 distance is just it's so manageable. It's a
Yeah,
really manageable, fun distance.
I agree.
And so we have some athletes that will do that Ironman, they're like, "Got it," kinda like I said, like, check that off the list, and I really like 70.3s. Again, it's fun, it's manageable, you still get the vibe, the experience, all of the things. Um, but yeah, I think it goes both ways, and some athletes obviously can very easily jump back and forth between the 2. So I think it really comes down to and, like, when I'm chatting with an athlete on, like, what their season is gonna look like, and then even for me too, personally, like, how much time can I dedicate to this? And so, looking at that and being like, okay, maybe this is the season for 70.3s. It's like the time and dedication I can put towards that right now, versus Ironman as a whole other beast.
Yeah, so you're helping your athletes kind of plan the season based on their season of life and not necessarily
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
um, I
Yeah,
think that being a coach is putting you in such a unique perspective to see kind of the meta of what's happening across. Do you think that moms are able to transfer the skills of self-compassion, comforting their kids, helping them get through hurdles and difficult situation and bounce back? Are they able to take the same skills? I can call it self-compassion, you can call it resilience, and bring it into their own athlete identity, or
I think
or they can't?
it's hard. We are very hard on ourselves. And so, what you would say to someone else or your children, right, if something didn't go as planned or they didn't, if your kids are in sports and, they didn't, whatever, they didn't get the basket and they're
Yeah.
super upset about it, you would sue them, be like, it's okay, literally everything's fine. And then we take that to ourselves and you're like, "Okay, I had a run and I wasn't able to hit any of the paces and I'm just, like, devastated." We're so hard on ourselves and, to simply answer your question, I'm gonna say no, we're just so hard on ourselves. It's really hard to take that same, encouragement or
Yeah.
whatever to ourselves. It's really hard.
Yeah.
So that's
I
where
think I think it's one of the things I've found in Iron Moms that able to persist is the self-compassion. But by the way, it could look like today I'm going to sleep in. You can sleep in and you're still showing up. And so that's one of the things that after talking to my coach, and she brought it up, how critical it is to use self-compassion. But it sounds like, and I would agree with you, that this is not a skill that is easy to translate and bring into your athlete,
Yeah.
but could be helpful if you do. If you borrow
Yes.
those skills and bring them, it could be very helpful for you as an
Yeah, and I'm gonna take with that one step further now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, and I also think it depends on the experience you have as an athlete. So thinking about our athletes that have been in the sport for 5, 6, 10 years, they're much easier, they're more able to be like, that was a just thinking about like workouts in particular, like that was a bad workout. It sucked from beginning to end, nothing went right. No big deal. I'll be back at it tomorrow. Where if this is like your first season, your first race, that is much more devastating and harder to get over, if that makes sense.
It
And to like
does.
see like zooming out, like one bad workout does not make or break anything. So the more reps that you have at that and the more just experience you have in the sport, I think it is easier to have that self-compassion and be like, it's I'm okay, it's okay." Um, talk positively to yourself, versus if you're newer to the sport, everything feels a little bit more make or break when and actually I worked with one athlete, gosh, many, many years ago. And she trained for her first triathlon ever was an Ironman. And then she did wonderful, she did amazing. And then I always say it gets more fun the more seasons you work with an athlete. And then going into the second season, she's like, I understand now that not everything has to be perfect. And she's like, I'm excited to have more balance in my life in this next season. She's like, I know if I miss a day here or there, it's not going to make or break anything. And same thing with those
Yes.
workouts that just don't go to plan. So
Yes.
I think experience in the sport also plays into that.
Absolutely. And you did talk about even how the joy you're getting out of competing for so many years is what you're learning from each season and each race.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now let's do the rapid fire. Rapid fire is
Perfect.
quick questions, whatever comes to your mind, one word or a sentence. And if you don't have the answer, that's fine. We can just pass. So let's
Perfect.
start easy. Wetsuit on or off?
Off. No wetsuit. Oh, no.
The swimmers will always say that. I am agree with you. Almost always, Eagle Man is uh, there's jellyfish, but it's also wetsuit optional, and you're like, but I prefer not to overheat and get jellyfish stings than get overheat because I think that will actually end my race.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you.
Okay. Um, last time you cried on a run.
Oh gosh, this happened so many times, but not in a while. Probably like pre-babies, but it used to happen very frequently.
One word that describe you as a coach.
Um, ooh, I'm gonna say, like, compassionate comes to mind first.
Okay. One word that describe you as a mom.
Fun,
And one word that describe you as an athlete.
determined.
What kind of workout you never skip no matter what?
Um, I think strength work, gets pushed aside, but it's something that's super important, so I'm gonna say
Yeah.
strength.
Yes. What would your pre-mom self think about who you are right now?
I would say she thinks it's pretty cool. And I would say proud of just how life has unfolded, and that it just keeps getting more beautiful.
That's awesome. Coach Carly, it's been a pleasure getting to spend with you the last almost hour and getting to know you and getting to know how you think about the people that you coach and also how you think about your family and yourself. And I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a blast chatting with you. And really, really glad we did this.
Yes. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, I will put in the show notes Coach Carly's page so you can follow her mantra and coaching philosophy and a couple of other fun adventures that she and her husband are doing. Thank you for listening in, and we'll be back next week with another episode.